Hi, Darren.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good today.
Okay. Uh, your full name?
My full name is Darren Wayne Collins. Yeah. Would you like my mother's maiden name, my social security number, anything else?
Are you Kenyan? If not, when did you come to Kenya?
No, I am not Kenyan. I actually was born and raised in the USA, and I have been living here for about 6 years now. My first visit was about 10 years ago, but I've been living here for 6 years.
You just said your first visit was 10 years ago. What did you come to do? Was-
Yeah, so in 2012, I came here to do research on HIV and AIDS prevention education using puppetry and the performing arts and storytelling. I was trying to find out the efficacy and the possibility of actually implementing a program like that here in Kenya, where we would teach HIV and AIDS. So I was going to hospitals and orphanages and talking to pastors and parents and children born with HIV, and just finding out those sort of details, and also learning how to do a tour, and also learning comedy. What is funny? What is humorous? And what is entertaining to Kenyan people, as opposed to my cultural background, just to see the differences. And so, yeah, it was a fact finding mission for the performing arts for disease prevention education.
What made you come and stay?
Well, I found a partner with Rotary Club of Nairobi, and I was coming from the Rotary Club of DeSoto, and I was invited to come, actually. That's what made me stay. I think it's a good idea to be invited before you go move somewhere. Yeah.
So, how is Kenya treating you so far?
That's a pretty standard question you're asking there. That's a question I get asked by every Kenyan that meets me. How is Kenya treating me? It's great. I very much enjoy it. I love the people. I love the language. I love the food, and the environment feels very good to me. So Kenya is treating me well. My body feels good in Nairobi. The elevation and the temperature, and the environment in general. I feel like I'm thriving in Kenya.
So, how did you land your role in the chemical video?
How did I land my role in the Chemical video? The Wash Wash video? Well, I landed the role because I'm a white guy who's available, and I happen to know Terrence. Terrence and I go way back. So, back in 2012, when I started doing my research here, I started doing comedy with Terrence and Fred Amundi, and we were doing comedy shows. They were doing comedy, and I was doing magic in the CBD, just to make some extra cash to accomplish my program. So Terrence and I worked together quite a bit, and in that process, he decided that I was the right guy for the role. So when he calls, I just say yes. I don't ask any questions. I know it's going to be fun.
Did you rehearse for your role, or do you go on set freestyling what you're gonna say?
Do I rehearse for the role or go and freestyle? There is no rehearsing with Terrence. The way he shoots things is in contrary to everything I do normally. It's a act of it's an act of what's the word? It is uh,
Improvise.
it's not just improvised. It's an act of faith to work with Terrence, because they're like at the last set we had 50 people. There's not one sheet of paper there. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what is the our character is all about until he says, "This is what you're going to do," and I'll say, "But what should I say?" He says, "Say whatever you want." Like, okay. So yeah, we're working without a net. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So there's no rehearsal.
How much were you paid?
How much was I paid? I think that's a personal question. You'll have to ask Terrence if he wants to reveal that information. But we have a great working relationship for years. So actually, that's a good question, because I don't like the question, how much have you got paid? I also don't like the question, how much am I getting paid? I find that in Kenya, there's a lot of great creative people, and the way to eliminate the ones who aren't creative are the ones who their first question is how much. When I call someone, I say, "Hey, I think you're really great for this part," and if they say, "How much are you paying me?" I'll talk to the next person, because your priority isn't creativity. Your priority isn't making great stuff. Your priority is what's in it for me. And if that's what it is, you're not one of us. You're not one of the artists, And oftentimes the pay is good. But if that's the first question, I don't need to work with you.
What has been your best experience now that a lot of people know you or can recognize you?
Okay, well, first of all, the experience is no different than life in general as a foreigner living in Kenya. Every single day, people recognize me, but they usually mistake me for this guy named Mzungu, or apparently there's this really famous guy named Kamau that I look just like, and so people are always talking to me. Now they just have something very specific to relate to. So they say, oh, you're the Wash Wash guy. So instead of the conductors running by and saying, Mzungu, they just run by and say, Chemical. So it's the same amount of attention. It's just coming from a different place. So, but it's nice. It's nice it's actually a little bit of a relief because honestly, throughout the day in Kenya, in my route, 10 to 20 people per day will shout, Mlami, Mzungu, Kamau, Droge, John, and now it's Wash Wash, which is way better. It's way better.
Have you ever been conned?
Have I ever been conned?
In Kenya?
Yeah, there's been some attempts at conning me, for sure. I've never actually completed a con. Like, there's definitely been plenty of people trying to con me, but the business that I'm in is in education. In education, we use the performing arts, and my background is a professional magician and juggler and puppeteer, and so I sort of know how deception works, and so there's some pretty obvious red flags when someone is trying to con you, and so the opener is pretty important, how they open the con. And sometimes I'll listen, like, oh, what's going on? And then immediately I'm like, oh, this is nonsense. But I've never successfully been conned. Even outside here, I've even had, law enforcement try to con me and convince me that I absolutely have to go to jail for some reason. And I just don't accept it. I just like, no, I know this. And eventually, I've actually had many situations with police officers where they try to convince me that I have broken the law and I need to pay. And it usually ends in laughter. I mean, because I'm usually just like, guys, you're trying to scare me. I know you just did this, this, and this. And then eventually, I've actually had a really good laugh with quite a few police officers trying to con me because they act really serious. They're like, you're in a lot of trouble. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. You're literally pretending you're angry. And so there's that. And then there's also guys who just like try to do a money exchange thing where they're like, oh, where's the local Forex? I'm like, you're holding a smartphone. Why are you asking me where the nearest Forex is? Like, this is kind of obvious, guys. And they're like, oh, okay. And so, and then of course there's the telephone ones where they're just like, oh, we sent you some M-Pesa. Can you send it back? And it's like, and so I'll just pretend to be conned and keep them on the phone until their airtime runs out. That's a con. But no successful conning of me. I've never lost money to a liar.
What's the worst experience that has happened to you working in Kenya?
Yeah, so I had a job. I took a job once, and it was actually a very good paying job. But the experience was I was hired to be a Italian grape farmer who would walk into pubs all around Nairobi. I must have went to 50, maybe 70 pubs late at night, sometimes 2 or 3 a day, with a promotions company with a big barrel over my arm because they were like, we need a white guy to pretend to be Italian. Well, I don't do accents. I don't do voices. I'm a stage performer, not necessarily an actor. And so I had to go into these places where guys did not want to see a white guy dressed up like a goofy cartoon character. And I was like, Mamma mia. We have a contest for everyone. And it was the stupidest thing. And I did this for months. And there were parts of the country where people were just angry at seeing me because I had to run a contest. And the contest was people would pick a key out of a treasure box And this key may or may not open up this giant barrel that I was holding. And if it opened up, they got free booze and everyone's happy. But if it didn't open up, the white guy just wasted my time and I'm angry at him. And they would get directly angry at me. I got yelled at. I got told to go back to my home country. Some dude spit on me one time in Kisumu. Like it was so bad. There's just these loud clubs where everyone's drunk. I'm like the only sober man in the place. And the girls had it harder than I did because I was with a bunch of pretty models. And of course, they were just being sexually harassed these times. And a lot of times we were interrupting like a football match. Like we would come in while guys were watching it and they would like turn off the TV and start playing like this Italian music and say, da, 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 da. Here he is, Signor Ruscio, here to play great games with everyone at the pub. And we had cameras. And that was the worst thing because they were taking promotional pictures, but there would be like cops who were hanging out with their girlfriends who were just like really angry that people were taking pictures. Like they did not want that to happen. Of course, they blamed me. And then everyone assumed that I was in charge because I was the white guy. But I was the cartoon character. I was not in charge. So they would come at me with problems or complaints. Congolese guys would try to do business with me, like, we really want your product in our country. I'm like, I'm the actor. I am not the guy in charge. You got the wrong guy. So that was actually a real challenge because it was late nights. And then there was just the times where we had to, I did comedy shows where no one, I have really deep English, and that's all I speak. I don't speak any Swahili. And so people didn't necessarily like my comedy at some of the places they drugged me to. And so it was bad. I think that was some of the worst. And then I've also been Santa Claus, like a professional Santa Claus. Like I'm like a skinny, I'm tall and skinny. I can't be Santa. They're like, oh, but you're white. I'm like, okay, that's not the only qualification for being Santa. But I did take it very seriously. And as Santa Claus, that can be hard because, again, it's like big crowds of people who really want your attention can be overwhelming. Like I really enjoy performing as a stand-up comedian, and I enjoy performing as a magician, as a juggler, and that's usually me on stage alone, and the audience is fairly far away. But when you're doing something like a live character, people just get right up on you, and they make demands. Like I owe them their time, and I have to be happy and jolly and friendly and nice to everybody, and that can be really, really hard when there's like a lot of people shouting in a lot of different languages trying to get my attention. Yeah, I've definitely had some really hard jobs in this country, but it's all a great learning experience. Like even when I work with Terrence, like I don't ask any questions because I know at the very least I'm going to have a completely new experience that I've never had before. And I think that's the most rewarding part of it. It's all sort of worth it in the long run because you only get sort of one chance at living life. And so the money isn't relevant and the bad times are worth it because you sort of have this like catalog of experiences that you look back on. And at least for me, I get to look back on this catalog of really strange experiences. I found myself in the strangest places. I mean, I've crawled around on the roof of Nyayo Stadium. Like, why was I doing that? I remember why now, and it wasn't a great reason. But now now I've said, oh, I've been on top of that building, or I've been on a boat in the middle of that lake, and I've been spit on at that club in downtown Kisumu. I've had a police officer like try to put handcuffs on me, over on that street, and and I don't know, it's fun.
What's the one misconception people have about you being a white person in Kenya?
The biggest misconception people have about me as a white person is definitely that I must be rich. Like that's the thing. They don't. There's probably not a lot of white guys in this country who are not rich, but I'm an artist, and so I've come here to actually teach the art form and help the Kenyan my crew here just sort of raise their ability as artists. But we're still artists, So most, I think, of the white guys that are here are either like from old money, or they're government worker guys who are like making American wages in this country, or they are businessmen or whatever. And I don't fit any of those qualifications. Like, I'm a blue collar American dude who just does the grind like everybody else. So there's this weird assumption that I must just be loaded. And so when people see me driving a Pro Box, they're like, "What's going on there?" like, no, man. I'm also an artist. Like, I'm hustling. I'm making it work. But yeah, that's definitely the number one misconception. Sorry, everybody. I'm not that guy. It's true though. I think for women it's really hard too. They're like, "Wait a minute, you can't afford like no." No, man, we're not going there. We're not going to that restaurant. I'm sorry. Like one of my friends was like, "Yeah, I'm really." He told me, he says, "Listen, I'm very much attracted, to African women." He said, "And I really like tall ones and everything." And so he just sort of described. He goes, "But they think that because I'm white, like we're gonna go on a helicopter." I'm like, "I can't afford a helicopter." I'm like, "I know. This expectation is like totally out of this world." And so I'm sorry to disappoint everyone, but yeah, I also hustle and run out of money at end month, just like everybody else. Like, you'll find me on a Matatu like on the 27th,
So are you single, married, or dating?
Look, what's the difference between being single and dating? I am
Single is like a dollar bill. There's no prospects. There's no going to dates. There's no potential. You're just single. Dating is maybe you have a girlfriend and you've not taken it to the girlfriend stage, or maybe you're seeing several people.
Okay, because not everyone defines it the same, I find. Okay. But I'm single and dating is what I'm doing. Yeah, right now. It's I'm not. I've never been married. I am not married. I do not have children. I've been traveling for a very long time, and going to different countries and working different things. But this is the longest I've stayed in a place. So now I feel like I'm safe to actually start meeting people and hanging out and going to dinners and that kind of thing.
So how do you find the dating scene in Kenya?
How do I find the dating scene in Kenya? Listen. It's great. There's a lot of really great, interesting people. I really actually enjoy meeting different ladies, and there's a lot of really cool people. I find yeah, it's been a really nice experience actually. I've made a lot of friends. Some relationships don't work out, and some turn into great friendships. And I don't know. There's lots of places. It's tough during COVID. Like, I think everyone's going crazy. Like, I meet people and I can tell like they're so relieved to actually leave the house. I know I am too sometimes. So I don't know. I have nothing but positive things to say. I've met maybe 2 psychopaths, but other than that, everyone's been pretty cool. But there's definitely been 2 like absolutely. But no, I don't judge. Like, I'm not buried underneath a water tank right now, so that's good.
You are a magician. What attracted you to doing magic?
So when I was a child, I've been a magician, a juggler, and a puppeteer, and a stand-up comedian since I was very young. When I was 15 years old, I think is when I really got into the performing arts. And I just enjoyed watching the guys who were humorous and funny, but also had some sort of prop. For some reason, that really attracted to me. So when there was guys juggling, many balls up in the air, or there was someone with a puppet, or there was someone doing a magic trick, that especially fascinated me. And I had very, very chill parents who were just like, "Hey, if you love it, go for it." And so my dad and my mom encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do. And so as a kid, boy, I wanted to learn how to do magic. And so I was really attracted to the idea of wonder creating a sense of awe and inspiration and question and like, how was that done? Those are the kind of emotions I like to see an audience go through. And so learning magic is one of the best ways to do it. And what's interesting is in Kenya, a lot of people ask me, is magic real? And that's kind of a strange question because it's happening. So in that sense, it's whatever you're seeing is real. Like it's not like a 3D animation or something. But I think what they're really asking is, do magicians have secret powers? And the answer is no. There's no one in the world who has special powers. It's all practice. It's all scientifically explainable. It's all something that is possible in the real world. Anyone could do it. Anyone watching this, you absolutely can do magic. It's just rehearsal. It's just practice. It's lying. It's always lying. Magicians are always lying with their mouth or lying with their hands somehow. They're doing some sort of thing that's a little bit faster than the audience, and so it's real in the sense that it's really hard work to do magic, but it's not a special power. If someone claims that they have power from beyond or some sort of spiritual thing, they're absolutely 100% without question lying. They're a con artist. Most of us who are magicians totally admit that. Like, yeah, we're going to do a thing here. I don't have any real power, but it's going to trick your mind. It's going to trick your eyes somehow. And so, but that's fun as long as there's that honesty that this is going to be fun and I might blow your mind. Then it's a lot of fun. But it's when guys are just like, I'm going to really read your mind, or I'm going to talk to the dead, or I'm going to make this thing float because I have the power of, people ask me all the time, like, is this guy on TV? Does he like really work with Satan or something? I'm like, no, he's been practicing. Please don't blame it on Satan. He's actually a guy who's been practicing really hard all by himself for a long, long, long time, and now he's good enough to blow people's minds, but it's not some sort of spiritual or negative power of any kind. But that's what attracted me, was just the idea of implanting wonder and joy and question and curiosity into an audience. That's what made me want to do it, for sure.
You have such a cool Maasai bee on your side. What's the story behind it?
Oh, so we have been asked quite a bit to do puppetry for the new Akili Kids Network here in Kenya. And they called us and said, we had a national spelling bee. Can you help teach the children some of the more challenging aspects of spelling through some of your puppet characters? And so for the last month or so on Saturdays, they've been airing the spelling bee. And we have a bee, and so she's a spelling bee, but she's not a queen bee. She's a princess bee because she can't be queen until she learns how to spell every single word. So for now, she's not quite perfect, so she's still a princess bee, and she's a little bit of a diva. So you'll see her wearing a different type of headpiece or crown in almost every episode because she definitely likes dressing up like a princess. And so this is Princess Bees. Bees, do you believe that? So one of our puppeteers, a couple of our puppeteers operate the body, and one of our guys operates the voice, and we film right here with little Princess Bees, the spelling bee. The reason I'm here in Kenya is to produce health education stuff for children and families. And so I think my greatest joy so far now has been doing these live programs with the puppets and the puppeteers and the magicians that I have trained, because these guys now are employed and able to go out and do birthday parties and corporate events. And through Puppets 254, which is a entertainment company, they're able to pay the bills, and the guys are able to do really high quality entertainment. And then also through Puppets 254, the guys have been able to do some really high quality disease prevention education at schools. And also now that we're on television, we're reaching like 5 to 6 million children every single week on the Akili Kids Network. And I think that's my greatest joy, is the fact that I came to Kenya in 2012 and I met Terrence and I told him I had an idea. And my idea was to use storytelling for disease prevention education. And Terrence is really supportive. He helped translate many of our early scripts. Like he was the guy that I would have the scripts written in America by some of the best educators, and I would send those programs to Hollywood, which would be tightened up by Hollywood writers who made the scripts really, really tight. But then to make it appropriate for Nairobi and Kenyan audiences, I gave them to Terrence Creative, and he was the one who changed the language and moved it into Swahili and tweaked and made it just perfectly accurate to work well here and make it humorous here. And that's when we started to get a lot of traction. And so through his translations, we were able to go to hundreds of schools. And then from that point, our quality of production was so good that we started getting hired by the Akili Kids Network and other AMREF and the Rotary Club of Nairobi, and all these guys were using us to make really great education. So I think I'm super proud of my colleagues here at Puppets 254 and of the relationship I've had with Terrence to make sure that we are culturally relevant at the same time. That's been really, really rewarding to see these characters on television, at schools, and slowly becoming household names. That's really nice. Okay.
So how can people find you and where?
People can find me at Darren Around the World on Instagram, and my company, Puppets254, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and at Puppets254 on YouTube.